Hey there everybody, Don Emmons here from WatchReport.com, and today I have in front of me the William L. 1985 Diver. This is very much a vintage style piece, and right away I want to apologize for my voice. Kind of got cold. Of course it has to be a few weeks before Christmas here, but hopefully I'll get it knocked out of my system before the holidays so I can enjoy myself. But videos and work and reviews still need to be done. So back to this dive watch here. It's very much a vintage style piece, both in the design, both in the size. So we've seen this vintage revolution happening here in the past few years with all brands, whether it be mainstream brands like Tudor or all these micro brands. And one of the things, though, with a lot of the brands, not all of them, but with a lot of them, is the size. They have taken the vintage design, but they've modernized the size because, I guess we just didn't know how big watches could be back in the day, or we were just smaller individuals. But, a lot of watches never even hit the 40 millimeter mark until more of the 70s. Again, not true for all across the board, but in a lot of examples. Nowadays, we got guys who feel a 44 millimeter watch is small. But there seems to be another trend shifting back to these smaller pieces. And while William L. 1985 is kind of a weird name, but let's be honest, we got the Dan Henry and all these different types of names. And hey, when a popular mid-end mid-luxury brand, if you want to call it, I don't know what the hell to call it, but Maurice Lacroix. I mean, so the name is the name. I think sometimes with a name it comes down to it's new to us. And if it's around for 20 years, it kind of like we don't pay attention to how weird it sounds. But then, 20 years later, 2 decades later, we're like, oh, yeah, well, no, that name's perfectly fine. So this is a 38 millimeter case, 38.5, and it is 44 millimeters in length. You have an 18 millimeter strap width here, so 18 millimeter lug width. You know what? Let me grab calipers here because I didn't measure the thickness here offhand. Let me go ahead. 13.5 millimeter stick, which really isn't thin, but you could see the way this case is done. It's not the mid case, it's that thick. That's including the bezel, the domed crystal, and the case back. So the way it sits on your wrist, it's not going to be as thick as it sounds. Now, price on this is €349, comes to around $400 or so USD. You're looking at a Seiko NH35 automatic movement. It does have a sapphire crystal. Now, there seems to be this leather strap version, there's a mesh version, a rubber strap version. I could be speaking wrong. There may be a PVD version that I'm trying to remember offhand. Comes in this, nice little leatherette zippered case. Now, $400 Seiko NH35. It's kind of right at my limit of, I never like to look at just the movement because I think a watch is way more than the movement. And there's a lot of guys out there that'll see a watch with a quartz and be like, quartz only costs $30. How could you charge more than $200 for that watch? Well, you don't know the price of the rest of the components and you don't know business. But regardless of that, and I apologize for the sniffling here, that was very unprofessional. But I'm going to try and get through this video. So, a watch and the movement, yeah, movement's important, but we're not looking at, high-end watches here and talking about one-off movements or in-house movements. We're talking about base movements that a lot of micro brands use. Now, the NH35, it's not a bad movement. It's better than the Miyota 8215. I just always feel for some reason I'm like, for $50 more, you could have had something a little bit better with a higher accuracy. But Again, the Seiko NH35 is not the worst, and it is not the best movement. I swore that I remember reading when I initially read the spec sheet, but it was probably a few months back that I had the 9015. But obviously, I'm looking at a lot of watches all the time, so I could be confused. Let's go ahead here, get a close-up on this dial. You got this nice black dial with the orange accents. You're dated to 3 o'clock. Very clean dial. Mostly brushed case with some accents of high polish. Pretty nicely done. Pretty solid piece, actually. Really haven't found a lot of things I can complain about. You got the quick change pins here on the strap. Strap is one of those rally type of straps. It's actually pretty decent. It's a nice strap. I'll be honest, it's a little on the thin side for me. Here, let me go ahead and put it on the wrist. When I say thin, I just mean because of the 18 millimeters, but I'm just not used to wearing it. And going back many years ago, here's a look on my 7.5-inch wrist. Going back many years ago, I never thought the day would come where I was wearing a 40 millimeter piece either. And now I wear 40 millimeter pieces on the regular. So could I get down to a 38.5 with a 18 millimeter strap? I'm sure I could wear it for a few weeks right straight in a row. And I have not worn this one yet a few weeks straight in a row, to be honest with you. I've worn it off and on. And then, you go ahead and you put a bigger piece on and it kind of looks weird. But I think I could get used to it just like anything else. So if you want to see more about this, click the eye in the upper right hand part of the screen. We'll take you over to watchreport.com to see the full review. Leave a like or a comment here on YouTube. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to us. Hit that notification bell twice. You will never miss another review. I will end this video with a loom shot as we have been doing here. And this has been a look at the William L. 1985 vintage style diver. Hey guys, I apologize here, so we'll add this here on the end of the video, but I realized I hadn't shown you the bezel or crown action, and that is my apologies. So here is the bezel action. It is not, it doesn't have that much play, to be honest with you, and it has a nice, easy to turn, not super firm, not super loose clicking. Go ahead and show you the screw down crown. It's a little gritty. Pretty solid, pretty firm, but it has a little grittiness to it when first unscrewing it from the case. And there's a little bit of resistance when screwing it back down, and then there's kind of that grindiness, grittiness a little bit. Not a lot. I think sometimes I overemphasize things, but just to try and get the point across. But there's a little bit of that. It's not the smoothest winding, crown that I have ever operated. Of course, we are looking at a $400 piece as well.